Greetings, everyone. Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to the latest world building episode for this new unnamed project that we're not going to be giving a name to for quite some time because we want to keep that under wraps. And also, it's just kind of like with film projects, they'll call it Project Falcon is the code name for the project while it's being worked on. And then once they get to the point where they're ready to do the marketing campaigns, everything else, they'll give it the final name and all that kind of stuff, do the movie posters. So we're going to be doing the same thing. It is an unnamed project at the moment. If you want more details about it, don't forget to check out the links below to all the previous videos, the Patreon posts, and everything else. Very quickly, very briefly, if this is your first time here, this is a brand new project that's being worked on between myself, my wife, and my brother. We are working on a three-part project. It is a campaign setting in a brand new rule set that we're creating around this for tabletop campaign with a tie-in novel and then also a point and click adventure game. And we're all working on various components of that. So if you'd like more information about that, make sure to check out the links below to the previous videos in the series. You can also find it here on YouTube or go straight to the Patreon because this is all being done exclusively through Patreon. Obviously, we have videos up on YouTube, but all of the nitty gritty stuff, like the day to day work that's being done on chapter work, character creation, brainstorming sessions, story sessions, all the various pieces of concept art that are being created. Um, all of that is being detailed on Patreon and all of the various products, I should say. The tabletop campaign, the guidebooks, and all that stuff is being done exclusively through Patreon. So if you like the sound of that, make sure to check the links below. If you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you get updates for when we do new videos or we're live streaming or any of the other fun stuff that we do. So in the previous video, which the light's going to be weird and everything else, um, I showed the first version of the map that I drew by pencil, and I did like a 20-minute overview of what was going through my head when I was working on that. Now, since then, I've had additional story sessions with my brother, and we have kind of come up with some other stuff that we want to do. And so I'm going to be, that's kind of my main model of what I want out of the world map, but I'm also adjusting it a little bit based on some of the story sessions that we've had. And if you haven't watched those videos, make sure you do. Um, but I'm going to be shifting this somewhat because I want to have more of a landmass up into the frozen north. We're basically going to be dealing with frozen north, temperate zone, desert is kind of the three areas that we want. And it's, it's there's lots of things going on here, so I don't want to get bogged down in the details because we've got that in other videos. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in here and we're just going to start drawing some stuff. Now, the program that I'm using is called Incarnate, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is not an ad for them by any means. I've used Wonder Draft, Wonder Draw, Wonder something or other. There's another map making program that I used when I was working on the Saga of Lucemia. But I wanted to do something a little bit different here, and I liked Incarnate because they've got world maps, regional maps, battleground maps, and city maps. So you could do all these different types of maps. And because a huge component, like 1/3 of what we're working on here, is campaigns and a tabletop setting, I liked having a program where I could come in and make actual campaign maps, battleground maps, city maps, and so on and so forth for all of the campaign resources that are available to people through Patreon for this project. So for me, it made sense to use this program. It's browser based. It was 25 bucks for the pro for the whole year. So, I mean, again, it's not an ad. I just like the program. It was really cheap. There's lots of cool resources. Um, for this particular map, because it's the first map that I'm doing the parchment style because I want it to be kind of old school and parchmenty. You can come in here and look like if we wanted to use which later on I will be doing a version of, but all the parchment stamps and stuff look like this. And then if you get into the fantasy regional high def stuff, you get into all these colored icons and assets. And those will be being used later on down the road when I make the colorized version of the map. But for now, I'm sticking to a parchment based version and we're going to be working from there. Now, this is going to be a multi-part video because I'm not going to be sitting here and doing it all in one session. So hopefully you enjoy and you follow along. I'm not going to be doing any music or anything like that. It's just going to be me sitting here drawing. It might be boring for some of you, but for those of you who like it, hang out. Um, ask questions, and I will get them answered in the comments below. And I may someday come and do a live stream version of this. We'll see. And I'll definitely be doing a sped up version, so there will be a speed run where it's cut down to like 3 minutes or something, and I'll put that out somewhere. Might do a 1 minute version so that I can put it out on like Instagram and TikTok and so on and so forth. By the way, social links are below if you want to follow along and etc. And if you want to support what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe to the Patreon. Without further ado, let's get into the first part of this, which is getting some of the northern sections defined, and we're going to kind of work our way down from that. There are islands and a primary landmass. Um, when I say world map, what we're building here, though, is the campaign setting for this and where we're going to be setting the first novel. So we're definitely dealing with one section of the world. Now, is there more beyond this? Sure, but we're not diving into that with this campaign setting. We're not diving into that with this novel. We're literally using this as a starting point. So I'm not actually drawing an entire world at this point with like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 continents. We're dealing with one continent slash landmass and the surrounding areas, and then we'll build out from there as this project grows in scope. So for now, what I want to come in here and do is I want to get some basic land masses. And again, I'm using my hand-drawn map as a sort of a reference point, but it's also not. I'm not doing it, exactly to that. So I know we're gonna have an island up in here. And I'm going to fill these in later. So these are just, right now, we're just doing some very basic, I haven't worried about the edges or anything like that. We're just getting the land masses down at this point. Probably have, and then we have a longer one here that comes in like this. Something like that. And then we'll do and I'm actually going to cut this off here. Bring that tool size down. Something like that. And then we'll probably put a couple smaller sections like this. All right, so that's something over there. Then we want to create here sort of a, that's too close. We do want to have like maybe another island here also. Something like that. Then we're going to create, I got to look at how I want to do this because I'm doing it in reverse from the map. Okay, we want to have like a, I don't like that part. Something like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then we're going to come in here. Okay, I like the look of that. So we're dealing with some islands over here. We've got an open sea here, a couple of peninsulas, well, I guess a few peninsulas here. There's going to be some stuff going on over in here, which we're going to talk about later. Now I want to come in and I want to kind of create the other side of this. So we know we're going to have... So again, this is going to be the cold northern islands. So probably, this whole section, is going to be cold, but the rest of it won't be. So, just bear with me as we continue to flesh this out. Um, like I said, we're just sketching the outlines of this at the moment. Oh, I better save, by the way. Call it new map. Yeah, we'll just call it new map for now. Make sure I save. Don't forget to save, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now I also know somewhere in the middle here we've got kind of like a Mediterranean type environment with a major island in the middle, which for storyline purposes there's stuff around why it's like that, but we're going to get to that here in a minute. Let's continue to draw out the northern section here. And then we're going to come over here and have another finger of land that comes out like that. And then we're going to start coming down the coast here, something like this. And then about halfway down, we're going to come in to this interior sea. So, and like I said, I'm not exactly following the map that I have. It's somewhat according to the map I have. Okay. Nope, let's do that a little bit differently. So we're coming in here and we're going to continue to create this open sea within the interior. Maybe come out like this. Come back down and around. Have another finger of land that comes out like this perhaps. Okay, so that's our basic rough. Doesn't look like anything yet, but we're dealing with a basic rough landmark, and there's some sort of an island here in the middle. Now, again, this is rough. I'll be defining the shapes here in a little bit, and we're going to continue to modify this. Now, I know that I need some islands over here, some island nations. So we're going to, and I may redo these somewhat. We'll see here in a minute. All right, we need some islands over here. So we know we need a small one here. Okay. Then we need something that looks as though it came out from there at one point upon a time. And then kind of follow the contour. Something like that. Then we've got something in here. Like so. And then we'll do another one up in here. It's sort of a larger island. Okay. Something like that. So we've got some additional land masses here off, and then up here we've got the sea. All right, so now that I've got this basically broken down, what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to fill the rest of the land. So I'm just going to increase this brush size somewhat, and we're going to come in here and we're going to just fill a lot of this like so. Just get the rough sections filled in. And then we'll come in and do the fine tuning with the brush as we reduce it in size. Okay, so I'm going to bring it down in size, and I'm going to come in here and do stuff like this. So again, we'll change the actual layout. Again, we're going to be adjusting the actual islands and stuff later on. So like right now, all I'm doing is I'm coming in and getting basic land masses filled in like so. Something like that. Oh, you know what we should do? If we do a subtraction and like, because there's that little nugget. Oh, that's great. And maybe round this off a little bit more. I kind of like the way that looks. Maybe bring that in a little bit more. Something like that. Maybe bring this in, something like that. Okay. I kind of like that. So I'm playing with it here as I go along. All right, let's get this filled in. Go ahead and save while we're working. Okay. Let's continue filling in the coast. Like so. I want to keep that little finger. I thought that was a nice little randomness that happened as we were drawing this out. Fill all this in. And like so. And again, this tool might not be for everybody, but for me it works great. I really enjoyed, and again, I'm not a professional at it yet. I've just kind of learned how to use it. And I've been watching tutorials and everything else, and I'm going to get better at it as I go along, but it's the tool that I'm using for now. I think I'm going to actually, well, we'll work on that here in a minute. Like right now we're just filling in, but I'm going to change the shape of this sea because I'm looking at my map and it's not quite how I want it according to the hand-drawn map. Come in here. So my goal here is I'm going to spend about an hour a day working on this map for the next, foreseeable future until I get it completely done. And then once the world map is done, we'll be working on other things. I'm going to go ahead and make that a little less. Something like, I think we actually need to take away from that. Something like that looks a little more interesting. And maybe put a couple little sections like that. Okay. All right. Let's finish the rest of this filling here. And again, we're not worried about whether or not we exactly follow the outline from before. We just kind of want to get it all filled in, because we can always come in and subtract from it and add to it as we go along. Like that happened right there. Dun, 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 dun. Nah, I don't like that. I don't like what I did there. That's a little better. Okay. Maybe bring that in a little bit more. Kind of want to expand this section a little bit. Yeah, I kind of like that. That looks a little too uniform, so let's probably bring this down a little bit more here as well. Maybe even. Okay, I like that. All right, let's continue adding here. Do, 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 do. All right. Something like that. All right, now we're going to get into the islands here. And we're going to fill these in. Boom, 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 boom. Voila! Okay, so now we have the basic land masses painted. Nothing super complex. We're just dealing with basic land masses. And if you remember the map that I drew the other day, this is actually in reverse. We've reversed this somewhat, and we shifted these islands here. We've shifted those way farther north than they were in the original map. They're also on the other side at this point. Not going to put anything else. I think we're going to be good with this for the moment. We may end up adjusting this a little bit more, as we go along. But again, what I'm getting at here is now I need to add a couple of little inland. So we're going to subtract, and we're going to take this down. I actually want to get rid of some of that coastline. I want to add some of that. That's a little too much. Something like that. Okay, now what I do want to add here is we're going to come in here and we're going to have a inlet. I gotta remember how to do the sizes here. Something like this. Okay. Bit of an inland sea here is what I wanted to get. Okay. That should work. What I might want to do though, hold that thought because this is going to be too big. We'll end up, what we'll do is we'll put a river here as opposed to a, later on. We're not going to do it yet. I don't know how to do rivers yet with this particular tool. We'll figure that out later on. Anyway, so now we're dealing, let's go ahead and save this. Now, something that was very interesting that there was in a tutorial that I saw, which I really liked, was the guy had defined how the mountain ranges would work. And the way he did them in the map making tool was really cool. So I'm going to do that. So if you remember the hand draw map, I had kind of drafted out where there were going to be mountain ranges. So we're going to go back in here. We're going to go to the path tool. Let me fit this to screen. Let's close this down. And I know that we're going to have mountains across this. How did it look? Because I've got the map reversed. So there's going to be mountains that kind of curve down like this. Right? That's one mountain range. Then we have another mountain range that comes through here. On the other side of the sea. Then there are, over on the other area, there were mountains that went like this. Okay. All right. So we have three kind of major mountain ranges here. Now there are going to be other mountains, but those are the three main ones. Checking on my map if I had any other ones. I did. I had on my hand-drawn map here by the islands, there's another range that looks like it goes right here. Something like that. All right, now the interesting thing about why he drew these lines is for the tectonic plates, which watching, I'm not a professional map maker, so it's interesting watching guys do this kind of stuff. So then, I'm not going to worry about mountain placement at the moment. What I'm worried about at this point is coming in here and doing basically where you've got these mountain ranges, you would have these islands, which basically are the tips of mountain peaks that are poking up through the water, and he'd put them something like that, which I thought was a very groovy idea. So we're going to be doing that somewhat here. And they're just kind of random. You know, we're not dealing with exacts here. We're just giving the world some more texture, so to speak. Put a big one here. Right? And maybe put a couple up in here, sort of like this. All right? Okay. Now what we could do is we can go over to this part and select just the paths, select, Control Alt for click all of them and just delete. And now we've gotten rid of the paths. And we've given ourselves a little more variation. Now, when I look at this, it still looks a little too uniform to me. So I would probably want to come in here and maybe just add like something like this so that they're not quite as uniform. I think maybe one here. Something like that. Go ahead and save that. Okay, so now we're dealing with a slightly more defined world map. So we've got plenty of lots of little islands where adventures can happen. I'm going to go ahead and just a little bit off the edge of that. Something like that. Okay, I like that. All right, let me take a look at my work. I think I'm pretty happy with that. You know, we're 30-minute in at this point. Looking at a very basic landmass. All right, now this island in the middle we need to do a little bit of work on. We're going to add to it. We want to give it a little more definement on this side. Smells like my wife is making nachos. I think the overall map is the overall island is too big at this point. So what we want to do is we want to kind of maybe add a little bit more here. Because at one point in time, you know, kind of all fit together here. If that makes sense. And maybe have it extend a little bit more in that direction. Okay. Maybe round this off a little bit. Yep, that might work. Okay. I think that'll work. Hmm. I do want to add a little bit more here. Take that. Subtract a little bit from this. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this so far. Let's go ahead and save that again. Now, one of the things we know is that there was there was a something that affected this. When I'm looking at it, it looks different. This, no, that side of the map. Something that affected the eastern side of the map. It looks different because this is my eastern hand, but it's in reverse because of the way the camera is set up. So this eastern section of the map, this is all part of this continent at one point in time. And so we know that one point in time we probably saw some volcanic explosions, so on and so forth. So we know that we can put some volcanoes. Whether or not they're still active or not is another question entirely, but we know that we can place some of those. And I definitely wanted to put one of them for visual effect because the way I was thinking about the people who live around this sea in the middle, constantly, living under the, I don't want to say the threat, but the awareness that at one point in time there was this massive cataclysm event, this massive event that happened, and on the island is the middle is the remnants of what used to be a great city. And of course, no one goes to the island because it was completely obliterated by. Think if for those of you who've ever been to Pompeii, um, that level of catastrophic damage was done to that city, and the remnants are still there, but there's a lot of reasons why people don't go out there. So we're going to be, one of the places we're going to flesh out first is going to be this island in the middle of this area. So we're going to go in here, and one of the very first things we want to do is we want to put a volcano. So we're going to go in here, and there are stamps for volcanoes, which still smoke, and I think we're going to deal with that. I think we're going to say that um, it still smokes away in the background, and we can go ahead and reduce the size on this, but we can go ahead and we're going to put that up in here, kind of like that. Yeah. Now, let's go ahead and get that selected. I'm going to add some color burn to that, give it a little bit of darkness. I'm going to add some, going to go in here to the shadows, shadows. And then we're going to adjust the coloring on this shadow. So you're going to see how it adjusts the look of this a little bit. I kind of want to give it a little bit of a red, maybe not quite that red. I want more of a lava, maybe something like this. Where did it go? Yeah, something more in here of this orangish red hue. Might be a little too orange. There we go. That's more of a. We can kind of give it this creepy hue. And we can expand the area a little bit, and do the density how we want. But I think for the, we can look at object. You can also do layer, but I like the object. So clip mask, no. So, um, that gives us this smoldering remnant of a volcano that's still kind of smoking away in the middle of this island. And then we're also going to put, where's it at here? Ah, here it is, crater. I've got various craters. Let's see which one I want to use. And we're going to go ahead and put some random craters here, kind of as the remnants. I don't know that actually, I don't know that I want to do more than one. Hold that thought. We definitely want to do a big one. We know that we want to do a big one from where there was a major impact. And we're gonna put that probably down over in here, let's say. Right? Let's go ahead and give that color burn to give it a little more depth. Okay. Let's go back to the objects. All right. And let's see here. What else do we want to do? I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay. Now we may want to add some. Well, before I do that, hold that thought. Let's go back to the volcano. Can we have some more saturation? Let's bring its saturation up a little bit. Contrast we're good with, but we can maybe drop it a little bit. Just give it some more red. Bring that brightness up just a tad so that it just looks kind of fun. Yeah, I like that. All right, so there's a crater over here, and what we might want to do, our crater is on, what layer is our crater on? Crater is on layer 1. Maybe we increase the size of that just a little bit. Maybe bring it up. Move it over just a little bit. Now what I want to do is I want to say, okay, so at one point in time, there was a city here, you know, the remnants of an ancient city. So what kind of orc icons? Plain ruin icons. Let's go ahead and do this first icon. And let's kind of put it here where it might have been on the edge of this at one point in time, no? Let's go ahead and darken that. Let's give it a color burn. Help it stand out a little bit. Good, good. Increase that. Move it down here just a bit so it's overlaying the coast. Now it looks blurry, as an FYI, it looks blurry because I'm editing in 2K mode. When I render this out in 4K, it'll look a lot different. But we're going to have the ruins of a city right there on the edge of the coast. And if we'll leave it at 1 where it was. Okay. Let's go ahead and bring that all the way up. Also this one all the way up. Now if we come out, it's kind of overlapping the coastline there, so I'm going to move this up a little bit so that it's not overlapping that section of the coast. Still a little bit of an overlap. All right, that looks kind of good. Let's go ahead and move this. I keep forgetting which ones are the move tools. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down over in here. Okay. So now we've defined that we know there was a volcano that erupted here, among other places. There's an impact crater here next to the city, and that's going to be what. So basically, the top blew off this mountain and crashed down however many years ago, and impacted the city, not just with a physical impact, but wiped the city out, and all that's left are the crumbling ruins. Now we can come in here and say, okay, let's save this. And let's come in here to do some other mountains here. Let's go ahead and bring them. Hold that. I don't know why. I forgot to do the sizes S and W. I always forget which one. I'm still learning the tools. So we're going to put some other. I think I actually want to use the other mountains. All right, we're going to maybe do some placement here. So that we can see that there are some smaller, there are other mountains here from once upon a time. I think maybe we'll put some here along the coast. Looks a little too uniform, perhaps. Maybe one in there. Maybe a couple back in here. Get rid of that last one. So perhaps something like that. So we see that there was some additional mountains on this island. Probably need to put some on the backside. Sort of like this. All right. I think that's a good representation of there being these mountains or hills around this area once upon a time. Okay. All right. I'm actually going to do a little bit of adjustment here. Let's get rid of those. Because I actually want this mountain range to have come through here. So I'm going to put some placeholder mountains right now. Perhaps, no, I think we just I need to put my lines back. See, I'm still new at this and I'm still going along and remembering as I go. Hold that thought. We're not going to do that quite yet. I want to go into and add some, there are trees now that have pine trees. All right, now we also need to deal with scale, so. And we maybe kind of, this has grown up over the years, so this happened many years ago, so now we have some trees that have grown up over the years in the lava-rich soil. That's way too dense. I need to just do individual placement for now. I don't actually want to have that kind of density. So I'm just kind of placing some trees here to kind of represent that, this is now an island that has life on it. It's in terms of there are some trees and things that exist here. Now again, the detail doesn't look that great at 2K resolution. Obviously when we pan out, it looks a bit better. But basically, we're just dealing with this because if you try to edit in 4K, it slows things down quite a bit. So you do have to use your imagination a little bit. You can do editing in 4K, but it does bog down. And they even tell you if you use 4K resolution that it's an experimental feature. So we're doing this in 2K. Now, when eventually I render this, it will be rendered out as an 8K by 4K map. But for the purposes of what we're doing here, I think that's a good cutoff point today to come in here and say, hey, we've done we've done the island. We kind of have an idea of where we want our mountain ranges to be. Let's fit that to our screen. We can go ahead and come in here if we want to and redraw the lines and just say, okay, we've got a mountain range that comes through here, something like that. We have another mountain range. Stop. We have another mountain range that makes its way through to here probably. And then we had another mountain range that carved through here. And then we have a mountain range that carved through here. So there'll be mountains across this. Something like that, yeah. I think that's a good enough stopping point as any. Like I said, we've defined this island now. And we've defined that there's a ruined city, a giant impact crater, and a smoking volcano that is going to remind the people that live around this interior sea that there was something that happened once upon a time. Now, the other thing you can do, now the when we talk about the zones, which we can get into that later, but basically we know that this, and I'm going to draw some lines which I'm going to take off the map here. That's a little too high. This area, even that is too high. This area here, this bottom section of the map is where we're getting into the desert and some stuff, which we'll talk about later. There's a reason why it's a desert now because we're technically kind of still in the temperate zone. And then everything from basically, if we want to look at it this way, from here down to here, this area is north. So if you want to think of like Canada, you can kind of think of this as like Canada, and then up here, this northern peninsula, these little islands, this little tip here, and definitely these islands are all going to be like frozen north section, and then all of this major area more or less, and it's more or less because I really want everything from the top of the lake down to be kind of like, think about Western Europe, middle of Europe, or the United States, and then everything above that is Canada. So we're gonna get rid of those three lines for now because we don't paint this map like we would. We totally could. If you come in here and go to the paints and textures, I had put in the original map here, but we can get rid of that. Yeah, we can delete that custom textures. We come in here and we've got parchment textures, which allow us to represent different colors and everything. But I want this to be a one color map. Um, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna color the lands. But you can go to like the examples and if when we go to do the color map, we'll definitely be breaking things down into zones and coloring them that way. But for the purposes of this video, we're not doing any color. We will change the color of the sea at some point and everything else. But for right now, I just wanted to show everybody the land masses and the actual basic process that I went through to get this from the paper map to the version that we see here. In the coming videos, I'm going to be coming in and I'm going to be doing all of the mountain ranges. We're going to be doing all of the forests. We're going to be doing general points of interest. I'm not naming anything yet, just yet. We're just coming up with, because that's part of the brainstorming sessions that are being recorded that we're going to be sharing with people. We're going to be defining who lives where are the races from, um, defining swamps and rivers and major cities and points of interest like dark towers and ancient ruins and like I defined today. I can define that volcano and that ruined city because we know that already. There are other things that we know, but we have to figure out where do we want to put them on the map. For example, we know the desert is into the south and we know why there's a desert there, and we're going to be talking about why there's a desert there as part of the story process. And there's going to be stuff down there in kind of that region, or rather a lack of things, or there's a reason why people aren't going to want to go down there and why it's kind of an abandoned wasteland. So yeah, stick around for all that stuff. If you enjoy and you want to follow along, be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so that you get updates when new videos are available. But more important than that is to make sure that you subscribe over at Patreon, because everything about this project is being documented through Patreon. And patrons are the ones who get first access to the book. They get first access to all the tabletop campaigns, the rule set, the rule books. All of those things are being done through Patreon. So we're not doing a Kickstarter, we're not doing anything like that. We will probably eventually sell the products, of course, somewhere at some point down the line. But for now, we're doing everything is through Patreon. So as the chapters of the book get written, they go straight to Patreon so that people can see them as they're being written. And then as we go through the editing process, we'll be putting all the revisions up on Patreon. And then once the eventual book is finished, it goes to the patrons. Same thing with the rule sets, books, as well as the campaigns for the tabletop. So stick around, enjoy. I will see everybody in the next episode as we continue fleshing out the map. And hopefully, y'all stay safe and have fun, stay healthy, and we will see you next time.